An important time arrives for a team that may have arrived before its time. Coming off a surprising playoff appearance, the Packers enter this weekend's draft armed with perhaps more assets than any other team. Tonight on Cover 2 Draft Edition, we preview the prospects, look at the local hopefuls, and of course, go on the clock. Will Brian Gutekunst make a move in the Motor City? The year before the draft, moves to Titletown. If you want to be ready for the weekend, don't move. Cover 2 Draft Edition starts now. Good evening, everybody. Welcome in to Cover 2 Draft Edition. This is going to be the 7th edition of a Packers draft under the guidance of Brian Gutekunst. Year 6 was supposed to be the start of that rebuild, right? But the 2023 draft class, combined with a very strong 22 class, turned that rebuild on its ear. The Packers moving into contender status way ahead of schedule. So now we will all be watching this week to see if that changes the calculus for roster building. Let's get started. Dave Schrader beginning our Cover 2 coverage tonight.
Well, Chris, Brian Gutekunst is on one heck of a run with the draft, mining top talent from day 1 to day 3 the last 2 years. His hit rate is in the stratosphere and delivering Green Bay to the doorstep of greatness. All the uncertainty entering the Jordan Love era last year has turned into great expectations of a team legitimately chasing a championship already. And it's all started with his potent picks during the draft.
I mean, you know, the draft is the lifeblood of this organization. It always kind of has been, right? So, like, that's why we put so much time into it. It's why it's so important to us. We believe in the draft. It's the biggest part of what we do, so we put a lot of time and effort into it. So I think that's why we've had a lot of the success we've had. I think, you know, the last couple of years, I think there's been a lot of opportunity for these young guys, or maybe there wasn't in the past, you know, and I think, you know, the opportunity can lead to these guys getting to where they've gotten to so quickly.
That's true. Gone are the veteran-laden rosters of the Aaron Rodgers era. The Packers were the youngest team in the league last year. An old Ron Wolf rule of thumb was to measure success by getting 3 starters out of any draft class. He's exceeded that in recent years, and last year he pulled a rabbit out of a hat, turning 1 pick, 45th overall, into 3 picks and 3 really good players as rookies. He traded back twice before taking Jaden Reed, who set the franchise rookie record for receptions, and used the additional picks on Dontavian Wicks and Carl Brooks. Quite the haul. But what if he had missed out on Reed altogether by getting cute and trading back?
Yeah, whenever you trade back, you have to expect to lose, you know, the players that, you know, that are on the board that you might be willing to pick at that spot. It's just, that's part of it. I think it's why we work so hard at getting the value right of the players on the board, is so that you can read it. I think you got to be very careful of falling too in love with individual players. You have to think of these things not emotionally, but just kind of like, hey, we do a lot of work to try to get this value right. If the board is telling us we can move back, then we will.
Staying disciplined and removing the human element is essential. And as much as fans' hearts are racing when their team's about to go on the clock, Goody insists that's overblown. Though his description of his job on draft day is pretty unbelievable.
I think it's pretty boring, to be honest with you. Most of this work's, you know, it's all been done, so the decision is fairly clear when you're on the clock. There's a perception out there that there's conversations and debates and stuff while the draft's going on. You know, for us, that's never really been part of it. I mean, you have an opportunity to make your football team better, you know, and I think that's the exciting part about it.
The hardest part, picking late and knowing the guys they may love the most stand no chance of dropping all the way to Green Bay.
You know, you're hoping this guy falls there, and then 3 picks later he's gone. I mean, it's just, you know, there's some human nature to it, because there's a lot of really good players you have to watch come off that board. I mean, we picked 25, right? You know, there's going to be 24 really good players that are going to go before we pick if we stay where we're at.
Goody always leans on the tape more than the underwear Olympics.
Take your time, man. You're chasing a record.
But interviews serve a role, too. Red flags can take guys off a draft board, but what about the flip side? Guys who wow in the meeting rooms.
Yeah, there's definitely some of those guys as you go through the process. You know, their football wiring, so to speak, is so high that you feel really good about their chances not only to succeed in the National Football League, but maybe to fit into your culture. That plays a significant part of it. I think we put a lot of time into that and who we're putting into that locker room, because I think that's only fair to the guys who are already there. But I think if we want to be the type of connected team that we want to be, it's an extremely important part of what we do.
The Packers enter the draft with 5 picks in the top 100. If Goody makes all those selections, it'll mark the first time since 2006 the Packers have 5 top 100 selections. A.J. Hawk, still the Packers' all-time leading tackler, went 5th overall. Lineman Darren College, 47th. Greg Jennings, 52nd. Linebacker Abdul Hodge, the only non-factor in the group, with 67th, and lineman Jason Spitz was picked at 75. Hodge only started one game in his one season, but the other four combined for 343 starts, 3 Pro Bowls, and they all won a Super Bowl ring. And welcome back. If Goody does use all 5 of those picks, it could be at 5 different positions. But whoever he selects with those premium picks, they will probably all have something in common. At least recent history tells us that's going to be the case. Joey Dubois has more.
Chris, the Packers, one of many teams placing more and more of an emphasis on athleticism, which can be summed up for any given player by their relative athletic score. The tool was invented by a diehard Detroit Lions fan who also happened to be one heck of a mathematician. It takes testing information from events like the NFL Combine, like a 40-yard dash time or number of reps on the bench press, as well as the athlete's height and weight, and spits out a score on a scale of 0 to 10. At Synergy Sports Performance here in Green Bay, Scotty Smith and his team train prospects to succeed in these tests, but they're not overly concerned specifically with RAS.
So whether it's the 40 or a broad jump or a vertical test, we want to try to have the athletes have the best possible score there is anyway. We can't control that algorithm anyhow to try to massage it. I don't know if anybody knows enough of the ins and outs about that yet to kind of do that. So we just put our focus on those numbers and the training, the specifics with the kids when they're in here.
NFL teams usually say they don't use RAS directly, but use something similar. That appears to be the case with the Packers, who under Brian Gutekunst have generally drafted prospects with higher RAS results. Last year's first-round pick, Lucas Van Ness, scored a 9.39, good for 6th in the class among edge rushers.
Most importantly, you got to be able to play this game. You know, that's more important than anything. But I do think that there are certain athletic traits that you have to be able to compete at the level we want to compete at.
Remember this guy? Well, that's Braylon Allen. Oh, back in his high school days in Fond du Lac. And that intimidating presence, well, it still stacks up as he gets ready for a call from the NFL. Allen ran roughshod through defenders as a Badger, and now he hopes to do the same thing in the professional ranks moving forward. Dave Schrader rejoins us with more.
Let's be real. We knew this day was coming a long time ago. You couldn't watch Braylon Allen in high school and not expect an NFL future. The Fond du Lac native we affectionately referred to as the man-child is all grown up now. He may still be too young to get a legal drink, but the running back who took on the bruising Big Ten at age 17 has come a long way from his high school days.
But let's be real, Allen looked pretty formidable in the weight room even back then in high school. He's traveled quite the road to get here, ready to be picked in the NFL draft.
Obviously, high school experience was very different than most. Recruited as a defensive player, committed to Wisconsin as a safety after my sophomore year. Going into my junior year, decided to reclassify up a grade, and that fall, due to COVID, our season got canceled, so we played in the spring.
He turned around and had quite the college coming out party en route to an amazing career. He scored 12 times as a freshman, 11 more as a sophomore, and then a dozen more as a junior.
I think my favorite play was my last run against Northwestern in my freshman year. I think it was only like 33 yards, but broke a bunch of tackles, and it was my 3rd touchdown of the game in my first start. So I think that was my favorite one. All those kind of follow up behind it. 96 for sure, school record, and then of course the touchdown pass.
So many to choose from, honestly.
Welcome back. Time to go on the clock as we say hello to our familiar friends and faces. Jason Wilde, President, Chairman, CEO of Jason Wilde Inc., Rob Demoski, ESPN.com, and Mark Daniels, WTAQ.com. We pulled you out of the mothballs from the offseason, gentlemen. 2 years in a row, some rather large offseason stories for the Packers. Maybe not as large as Aaron Rodgers going away, but they have not been lacking for making headlines, Jason. Which one grabbed your attention the most?
Mothballs. That's where I got this shirt on. Actually, with a collar for once.
Ball hit.
I actually made contact. Look, I know that we're going to talk more about Jeff Hafley, I'm sure, during the course of this, but how is that not a number one? There's plenty of others that these guys love to choose from. But since I'm first, I have to go with that. We've talked about Joe Barry ad nauseum. They've made the change. Now we get to find out not only is 4-3, 3-4, all the other stuff, but mentality, approach, scheme. Is that all going to make a difference for a team that has had a lot of years of meh defense?
And that's the main bar to this, Jason. But the sidebar is the strength thing, in my opinion.
Really?
Wiped out the entire strength and conditioning staff. Everyone wanted to, Mark, blame the medical, the rehab, the trainers, the team doctors for all the hamstring injuries, all the soft tissue injuries. this tells us that it's not those people, it's the preparation in the strength and conditioning program, and now they've made a huge change there, and we'll see if it makes a difference.
Good points both, but I still think it's Brian Gutekunst purging the organization of the Aaron Rodgers gang. Okay, last year it was en masse with Cobby and
with
Big
Rodgers.
Dog and Rodgers himself. Now it's Bakhtiari, and it's Aaron Jones, and it's Devondre Campbell. Now he has got to build a Jordan Love-centered team, and that is where they're going.
The Packers have their man. Jordan Love appears to be the next franchise QB in Green Bay. The last two times the Packers settled on their signal caller, the next drafts played out the same way. In 1993, with Brett Favre entrenched, GM Ron Wolf selected linebacker Wayne Simmons with the 15th overall pick, and then traded back into the first round to take safety George Teague 29th overall. Those two combined to start 93 games in 4+ seasons in Green Bay. In 2009, after Aaron Rodgers had established himself under center, Ted Thompson picked B.J. Raji with the 9th overall pick, and then traded back into the first round to take Clay Matthews with the 26th pick. They combined for 215 starts, and Matthews remains the team's all-time sacks leader. Welcome back, and we welcome in Bill Huber, in charge of Sports Illustrated's Packers page and friend of show. And we have him on every year. This is what I think he told me this is year 18 of breaking down, 16 of breaking down all the prospects. So let's start. We know the areas of need, Bill, right? It's O-line, the top areas of need. O-line, corner, safety, and they need linebackers. Let's start offensive line. We heard Rob talk about what he was told about Zach Tom could be a Hall of Fame center in the opinion of the Packers. What does that do, do you think, to the calculus of them looking at a tackle in this draft?
Yeah, they needed one anyway, right? You lose Bakhtiari and Yosh Nijman, so you already need one. Right now their backups are, the guy they just signed, who has been pretty bad lately. So they had to get a tackle. So now if that's the case, you almost got to get two of them, right?
Okay.
You need a guy if they're going to move Zach Tom now, which I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. But Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma is a guy who's played right tackle at Oklahoma because the quarterback was left-handed. So it's not a strike on him. He's athletic enough he can play both left and right. And Georgia's Amarius Mims is a big right tackle only. But if you're going to move Zach Tom at some point, by God, you better get a right tackle in here.
Along the shore of Lake Michigan sits Kewanee, a town of just 2,800 people, but with a rich athletic legacy of its own. Whether it's former big leaguer Jerry Augustine or more recently tight end Colin Cotchert, who played 1 year in the NFL with the Cincinnati Bengals. Offensive lineman Tanner Bordolini will be the next name on the list to go from the shore to the show.
Starting at a small school, playing in the NFL is something I think every kid dreams of growing up. In 4th grade when they ask you what you want to do, you write on that little piece of paper, I want to go to the NFL. For it to come full circle and actually be something that I'm doing and that I'm this close to achieving that goal, it's kind of surreal. Really happy to have this opportunity and to put Kewanee on the map again.
A 3-star recruit out of high school, Bordolini chose to stay home for college, pledging to play for the Badgers and doing pretty much anything to get on the field, whether it's at tackle, guard, center, or even tight end.
Huge. The thing is, when you go visit these teams, they tell you that if you're not the guy day one, you have to be able to play multiple spots. And certain teams want you at different spots, and that's a really good problem to have. You can play all those spots, and it just opens up more opportunities, more doors.
For local organizers, though, there is still a lot to learn, which is why they are in Detroit this week, along with our morning anchor, Emerson Lehman.
The band Kiss rebranded the Motor City as Rock City, and let me tell you, Detroit is rocking and rolling this week with roughly 420,000 people expected to attend the 2024 NFL Draft. Downtown Motown has been transformed into a football mecca, and over the next 3 days, Detroit will have the chance to showcase itself to millions of people around the world. That brings a sense of excitement to the city and a sense of urgency to make sure that things are done right.
You're never going to have the kind of voice amplification that the draft brings. You got 60 million people watching over the 3 days. So what is the story? What is the message that you want people to take away?
Here in Detroit, the message that can be felt throughout the city is one of unity and pride. Detroit making it a priority to make this a celebration for everyone involved.
Don't make it just about football fans. Make it about the family. Make it about the businesses. Make it about the residents. Make sure everyone is part of it so they're vested as well.